A judge has denied a motion to dismiss the murder trial of Duane Keffe D. Davis, who's accused in the murder of Tupac Shakur, which happened just off the Strip nearly 30 years ago. The defense argued that Davis cannot be convicted based only upon his admission, which happened during a 2009 interview when Davis thought that he had immunity. But the judge said on top of the admissions, there is evidence a crime happened since Shakur was shot dead, and she disagreed with the idea that Davis ever had immunity when discussing the crime.
It's fairly clear that the state of Nevada has never offered the defendant any sort of immunity. The federal government did in some capacity, but it doesn't appear to be complete transactional immunity.
And the judge dismissed the motion to throw out the trial. And after a pretrial hearing on February 11th, a jury trial is scheduled to begin March 17th.